What's going on, guys? Sticks here from the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I'm bringing you a deck centered around Vikavolt and Dragonite. And before I get into the deck, I just want to apologize because my voice has kind of been going in and out lately. Whatever's been going around has hit me, and so while I'm recording, occasionally my voice has been sounding fine, but I have had like voice cracks throughout the day, so if that happens, I apologize in advance. But also, before I get into the full deck, just a reminder that if you guys like this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and maybe subscribe. It really does help us out a lot and lets us do more for you guys. And as for the question of the day, this is the first deck that I'm really taking advantage of Lillie in, and I wanted to know what your guys' thoughts are of Lillie as a card overall. So really, this card, Lillie, this card is kind of a reprint of Bianca, and I say kind of because Bianca did not have the option to draw 2 more cards if you use this on your first turn. So Lillie, first turn, is an incredibly powerful card. However, without Battle Compressor, it's very difficult to use overall. So in Expanded, I think that Lillie is ridiculously powerful simply because of the combination of Battle Compressor and Versus Seeker. In Standard, not so much, just because if you get it first turn, it's very, very powerful, obviously, but later it's just kind of like a, well, I'd rather have a new hand. So what are your guys' thoughts overall on it? In my opinion, Expanded, definitely try it out. Every single deck that you run a Battle Compressor in, try out a Lillie. I can almost guarantee that you will not be disappointed, and I say almost guarantee because there's going to be that one person that's like, I was disappointed, and I'm like, well, there goes my guarantee. So I almost guarantee that Lillie you will not be disappointed in Lillie if you run a Battle Compressor deck in Expanded, save the Vileplume and Vespiquen deck. Okay, fine. I amend my statement. Any Expanded deck that you run Battle Compressor and VS Seeker in, then Lillie will almost guaranteed not disappoint you. In Standard, very torn. Overall, I'd have to say it's not really worth it in Standard unless you run a heavy line, but then you lose like Sycamore and N spots, so that really would hinder your deck. So I would say Lillie would work in decks like this where you rely on stage 2s with rare candies, so where you wouldn't necessarily want to get rid of your entire hand, but you do want to draw some more cards. So Lillie works well in heavy reliant stage 2 decks. Otherwise, I would say don't use it in Standard. However, definitely try it in Expanded. But then again, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below and why. But anyway, like I said, this deck is centered around Dragonite and Vikavolt. And let's just go ahead and talk about Vikavolt first, because this really is the engine of the deck. Strong Charge. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a Grass and a Lightning Energy card and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. So you can attach a Lightning to one, a Grass to another, and go from there. So very, very, very strong. And of course, the Pokemon that we're pairing it with is Dragonite, with an oddly specific Grass and Lightning requirement to be able to use Dragon Wave for 130, or for the Grass and Lightning does 130, and you discard a Lightning and a Grass attached to this Pokemon. Giant Tail, I never use Giant Tail. I've played this deck like 20 times. Never have used Giant Tail once. I would highly recommend against trying to use it unless you absolutely needed to. But yeah, basically using Dragon Wave, using Vikavolt to power it up each turn, and then Dragon Waving, hitting for 130 damage each turn is ridiculously valuable. But I'm also pairing it with this Dragonite because 150 damage from Heavy Impact for 5 energy. Again, the oddly specific Grass and Lightning energy cost. Heavy Impact, 150 damage. So that's like, why would you bother running that? Well, the Delta Plus Ancient trait, not ability, Ancient trait. If your opponent's Pokemon is knocked out by damage from attacks from this Pokemon, you draw 1 more prize card. So Heavy Impact to Shaman, draw 3 prizes. I mean, it's so good when you have an engine like Vikavolt that can just power it up so quickly. So that's why running 2-2 of these 2 Dragonite. And then just to make it a budget deck, I am throwing in Oranguru over Shaman because Oranguru is not Shaman, so it's a lot cheaper. With the Instructability, once during your turn, you may draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. Basically, just a very, very, very poor man's setup. It works sometimes, and it can help late game, but overall, it's just kind of a cheaper way of trying to run Shaman. And you might be thinking, Sticks, how the heck is this a budget deck if you're running a bunch of secret rares and full arts? And To be completely honest, this was not a budget deck when I built it initially. The Oranguru were Shaman, but I said, you know what? If it's this close to a budget deck anyway, I'm just going to switch the Shamans out for Oranguru, and I was far too lazy to change all of these secret rares and full arts to their regular art counterparts. So, yeah, I mean, this is technically a budget deck. Just kind of ignore the secret rares and full arts. But anyway, let's just go to the numbers of the Pokemon running 2 Oranguru to replace the 2 Shaman for the Instructability draw support. 424 of Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite. And actually, all 3 of these, the entire line, has attacks that you can use. Dratini, Signs of Evolution. You can search your deck for a Dratini, Dragonite, and Dragonair and put them in your hand. That's great for next turn if you, well, you can search for Dragonair and Dragonite, Rare Candy 1 of all the other. Dratini really does help the setup of this deck. Then Dragonair has Dragon Wish. During your next turn, you may attach any number of energy cards from your hand to your Pokemon. This way you don't need Vikavolt in order to get a heavy impact going. So Dragonair is just very, very nice for that. And then, of course, you have the 2 Dragonite because these are the main attackers. As for the backup attackers, running 3-2-3 of Grubbin, Charjabug, and Vikavolt. Grubbin is a grass type compared to the lightning of Charjabug and Vikavolt. So that is very, very excellent for this deck in some cases, and has a combination that I'm going to get to later. 2 Level Ball to search out all like the Dratinis, Grubbins, Charjabugs, Dragonairs, that type of thing. 3 Rare Candy, 2 Rare Candy from immediately a Dratini into a Dragonite, or a Grubbin into a Vikavolt. 1 switch. Don't run any float stones, so having a switch is always a great way to get out of a sticky situation where your opponent Lysandre's up a Vikavolt and you don't want to necessarily attack with it or pay the retreat cost, so you just switch it right on out of there. 3 Trainers Mail to help with consistency. I'd like to have 4, but I just didn't have the room. 4 Ultra Ball to guaranteed get what we want when we want. 4 VS Seeker to reuse all of our supporters. And as for the supporters, 3-2 of N and Sycamore as a draw support. You might be wondering what happened to the 4th Sycamore. Well, that Sycamore turned into a Lillie, which was a card that I obviously talked about at length in the beginning of this video. I decided to try it out in this deck because if you can get Lillie first turn and get like a couple Rare Candies and a couple Dragonites or a couple Vikavolts, that is ridiculously powerful. So I decided to try out Lillie in this deck. And then finally, the card that I did not have when I used this deck against Aura for whatever reason, Brock's Grit. Shuffle any combination of 6 Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard pile back into your deck. This way, when Dragonite discards them with Dragon Wave, or you get a Dragonite knocked out that used heavy impact, you have Brock's Grit to be able to put the energy back into the deck so that Vikavolt can use Strong Charge to be able to put those things back in the deck, and then also, well, not put them back in the deck. Brock's Grit puts them back in the deck. Vikavolt takes them from the deck onto a Dragonite. So that's why Brock's Grit is in there, especially late game when you have Oranguru to be able to draw you a couple cards if you need once you're all set up. Use Brock's Grit, put the limited number of energy you have back in the deck to be able to use Strong Charge. And then as for the Stadium, the combination I was talking about a little bit earlier with Grubbin, I'm running Force to Giant Plants because turn 1 you can go from Grubbin into Charjabug, and that is ridiculously good because you're able to get a turn 2 Vikavolt. Now, I was wrong when I was talking about this potential combo earlier. You cannot turn 1 Rare Candy a Grubbin into a Vikavolt. That doesn't work. You are not allowed to combine Forest of Giant Plants with Rare Candy to turn 1 evolve your Grubbin to Vikavolt. However, you can turn 1 Grubbin to Charjabug so that you can get a turn 2 Vikavolt, which is still very, very good. And that's why I am running the Forest of Giant Plants as the Stadium in this deck. And then as for the energy, you have the 3 Double Dragon. Not running 4 just because, I mean, I really don't have a perfect reason. Basically, just I was running out of space in this deck. This deck needs so many different cards. You were running 20 Pokemon. That's a very heavy line of Pokemon. And there's certain cards that you just need to have. So I kind of ran out of space. I would like to have 4 Double Dragon and 4 Trainers Mail, but there just wasn't the space for that. However, I mean, if you want to do that, if you want to figure out how to fit those in, by all means, go nuts and let me know how it works for you. But just 3 Double Dragon, be able to attach to Dragonite immediately, and Dragon Wave for 130 damage. And by the way, I forgot to mention this earlier, 130 is a frickin' magic number. I mean, 130 knocks out Greninja, one-shots Garchomp, one-shots Talonflame. Just a lot of things have 130 hit points. So hitting for 130 is very, excellent. I mean, Dragon Wave hitting for 130 is so awesome. I mean, sorry, that's 130 just really is a magic number. That's a takeaway you should get from my rambling right there. But then as for the energy, you're running 5 grass and 3 lightning. You might be wondering, well, why are you running 5 grass and 3 lightning as opposed to 4-4? Well, because heavy impact relies on 3 grass and 1 lightning, so we need a little heavier line of grass anyway. But yeah, that's the deck. It's okay, I'm going to be honest, it's pretty clunky, but once you can get it going and once you get it set up, it is very, very, very strong. So yeah, I'm done rambling. Let's go ahead and see this deck in action. Alrighty, we have found one against Clutch Dodgers with a fire and normal deck, so probably... Actually, I have no idea what this could be. If I saw fire and normal, initially I would say Typhlosion, but with Sun and Moon, there are a couple fire types that it could be, so I honestly have no idea what it could be. We start off with a... Actually, you know what? This is a pretty decent hand. Even though I don't have a draw supporter, I still will have a turn 2 Dragonite, and I do get to go first, and yeah, confirmed to be a Typhlosion Talonflame deck, so as long as my opponent doesn't start with a Talonflame, we should be good. I mean, being able to hit for 120 is pretty solid, but, whatever. Let's see, what do they start with? As long as it's not Talonflame, I'll be fine. To be fair, by not being Talonflame, it's guaranteed to be Cyndaquil, so I mean, there's that, but there we go. My opponent does start with Cyndaquil. Do I get a draw supporter? No, I don't. So what I'm going to do, play the Double Dragon Energy and just end my turn right there. Now, I know that this looks like it is a pretty bad hand, and yeah, without a draw supporter, it kind of is, in the fact that I will have to discard 2 Vikavolts is kind of going to be crappy, but I mean, my opponent doesn't really have anything. Even if he manages to retreat out into a Talonflame, I still can Lysandre it in and knock it out with Dragonite, and then my opponent does just attach an energy and pass. So we are going to win this first game unless all my Dragonite are prized, which they are not. So I will just grab a Dragonite, go ahead and rare candy up into that thing, and then attach another Double Dragon and attack to win the game. So yeah, we are going to be able to knock out the Cyndaquil, and I don't know why I thought it was 120. It is clearly 130. Complete brain fart. I literally just spent like 10 minutes looking at that card and talking about hitting for 130 as a magic number. So, guys, I'm losing it. I'm sorry, but yeah, very quick first game. Let's just go ahead and see if we can try to find another good one with this deck. Alrighty, we have found another one against Gondog with a water deck, so this is probably I guess it's a Greninja deck, well, at least based on the coin, and usually people try to make the coins match the deck. I know I do. So we are probably up against a Greninja deck, which will be a good matchup for us if I can get going before them. Luckily, we do get to go first, so that is huge, and what I have to do is just knock out the Froakies before they can become Frogadiers and be able to take prizes off of them that way. So, gonna have to be very careful in this matchup. I have to prioritize the Froakies or Frogadiers depending on whatever my opponent gets set up. Hopefully they don't start Talonflame, because, I mean, like last match, if my opponent starts Talonflame, while I can one-shot them with Dragonite, they'll still be able to attack. And, well, they'll still be able to Aero Blitz and get cards that they need while I have to prioritize the other things. And I do start off with actually a very good hand. I get 2 Dratini down. I'm able to get a Forest into play. I'm able to get a Grubbin. Hopefully I can get a Charjabug up turn 1, and I grab a Lillie. So, this is the exact scenario that I have Lillie for, is turn 1. I mean, I know you don't get it that often, but when you do get turn 1, I mean, that's a very, very, very strong start. And okay, so I get I get some stuff I can work with. I'll be able to get a Dragonite up turn 2, I'll be able to get a Dragonair, I'll be able to knock out this Froakie for sure, and then Sycamore away my hand, so not as amazing of a start as I would like. I would have liked to have gotten a Charjabug up turn 2. But you know what, this hand is still very, very solid, and that's the exact reason why I like to run Lillie, because especially in a deck that relies on rare candy combos as much as this deck does, you don't always just want to reset your hand. Sometimes you'd be like, well, I have a Dragonite, but I need a rare candy, or I have a rare candy, but I need a Vikavolt, or something like that. So really, this deck has... Lillie is an amazing first turn for any deck, but this deck in particular, and this is actually going to be an amazing second turn. I'm going to be able to get a Dragonite, I'm going to be able to get a Charjabug. Actually, you know what? I think at this point, I'm just going to grab another Grubbin, because while I could grab Charjabug, I want to just keep getting those Grubbins up and hopefully draw into a Charjabug that I can use this turn, which I do not, and I don't draw any way of getting one, so, excuse me. I am just going to play that down, play the Oranguru, and then go for a Dragon Wave, knock out the Froakie, discard the Double Dragon, and... Wait. Oh, okay, sorry. It was showing the second slot, and it was throwing me off, so, sorry. I'm just, yeah, whatever. I'm losing it today, I just said that, but I definitely am. Able to knock out that Froakie. I have a Lysandre for next turn. So, yeah, I am just going to keep targeting down this Froakie. My opponent does even play an Octillery active. So that is very, very big for my opponent. That means that they really have... Unless they have a Floatstone in hand, they have no way of really retreating that guy out unless by a switch or something like that. But really, I don't think that they have the room for a switch. I don't think that Greninja generally has room for a switch. I mean, they run a couple Floatstones. I'm sure of that, especially if they're running Octillery, but I don't necessarily know if they're running any switches, and my opponent would not want to put the Froakie active and risk it on just a coin flip. So that is a good play by my opponent. Keep the Froakie on the bench. However, unfortunately for my opponent, I have everything in my hand to be able to Lysandre up the Froakie and knock it out with a Dragon Wave this turn. Discard both the Grass and the Lightning to take another prize, and we are just going to pretty much rinse and repeat at this point. I have an Ultra Ball that I'm going to grab a Charjabug with next turn. I have a Double Dragon, I have a VS Seeker, that way I can Lysandre in another Froakie for next turn. I mean, really, as long as my opponent doesn't disrupt my hand, I'm in such a good position. I mean, there's almost nothing my opponent can do. I mean, my opponent can keep using the Bursting Balloon to try to deter my attacking the Octillery, but as long as I keep knocking out the Froakie, I will win. I'm going to knock out another Froakie, that way my opponent only has one left. And I get another Oranguru, so what I'm going to do, Ultra Ball, get rid of... Do I want to get rid of the Lightning or the Grass? I think the Lightning, maybe? No, the Grass, because I have more Grass than Lightning in this deck. Ultra Ball, grab that Charjabug, that way I can eventually get a Vikavolt. Play that thing down right there. Go ahead and play the Double Dragon, play the Oranguru down probably. Well, first off, I'm going to VS Seeker for that Lysandre to bring in the Froakie to be able to knock that thing out once again, and this shows just how strong this Dragonite is. Being able to Dragon Wave for just 2 energy each turn for 130 is absolutely ridiculous. I get another VS Seeker, so if my opponent plays their 4th Froakie down, I will be able to knock that thing out next turn, and I get a rare candy. So, I mean, this is... Everything's coming up Millhouse at this point. My opponent really... Unless he disrupts my hand, I will have the win. I mean, I don't think there's much my opponent can do at all. As long as I get a Vikavolt next turn, I will have the consistent acceleration I need to knock my opponent's Pokemon out with Dragonite. And I'm just going to rare candy up the Charjabug. And yeah, Vikavolt would have been able to accelerate the energy onto my Dragonite to be able to knock out the Octillery and bench out my opponent. So we were able to take the win very, very convincingly against a Greninja Break deck. And this deck is actually kind of fast for a deck that relies on a Stage 2. Okay, I use the term very, very loosely because with a Stage 2 deck, you're never going to be truly fast. Well, unless it's Forest Giant Plants, but even then it's still kind of clunky at times. But either way, I mean, this deck, you're able to hit for 130 damage turn 2 in an ideal situation. You have acceleration, all that you need. So, I mean, this is a very, very cool deck. I'm going to go ahead and try to find one more, even though that was such a great match. See if I can get a match for the other Dragonite to shine. Alrighty, we have found a third one against R. Clark 7 with a Grass and normal deck. So, I mean, this is... Based on the typing, it looks kind of like a Decidueye Tauros deck. But at the same time, it could be a Serena Shaman deck. It could also be a Lurantis Vileplume deck. I mean, there's so many different possibilities of decks that this could be. I do start with the Dratini, and I will get to go first, so that is pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, we see Forest Giant Plants, but if you see grass, 99% of the time it's going to have Forest Giant Plants. And, okay, this is a Vileplume deck, so it's just a matter of who's the pairing. Odds are it's going to be Lurantis, because, I mean, Lurantis is the thing that you pair a Vileplume with in this current format. So, okay, we're against a Lurantis Vileplume deck. This is perfect because, well, it's not perfect because I always hate facing Vileplume. But it's perfect in the sense that this will give the other Dragonite a chance to shine, because I really do not want to be two-shotting Lurantises and discarding 2 energy every single time I'm doing that. I'm going to want to be able to conserve my resources. And, oh, my opponent starts with a Shaman, so that is great. If I can just one-shot the Shaman, I will be in a fantastic position. I am just going to go ahead and Ultra Ball grab a Grubbin, just so I can try to get set up as quickly as possible with this deck. I mean, I have a pretty good start. Let's see, do I want to Trainers Mail? Yeah, let's just go ahead and grab the VS Seeker. That way I can Ultra Ball for something else. Do I want to get rid of the Dragonite, or do I want to get rid of the Vikavolt? That's the question. I'm not sure I want to get rid of my hand at this point. But I am just going to go ahead and Ultra Ball, get another Dratini maybe? Yeah, let's do that. And see, the thing is, I would love the opportunity to just sit on my hand. I would love that because, I mean, I have the rare Candy Dragonite next turn. I would have had like a Vikavolt next turn, but the problem is with, against that type of deck, well, against an item lock type of deck, you have to play out all of your, items as soon as possible. That way you're just not left in a horrible position. So I'm stuck doing this. It's not something I wanted to do, but it's something I had to do based on the deck that I'm facing. So a bit unfortunate, especially because I don't have a supporter for next turn, and I really don't have the means of getting one either. Like, I'll have to draw into it. And if my opponent's able to get a Vileplume up immediately, I'm going to be in a very, very bad spot. If I can somehow manage to get Vikavolt Dragonite this turn, I'm going to be able to knock out the Shaman and take 3 prizes. So that's the ideal situation. If I draw into a way of getting a Vikavolt and a Shaman, I will be able to get 3 prizes on a Shaman and just be a couple knockouts away from winning the game. But my opponent does just Sycamore. That is unfortunate, and it looks like, well, it's nice because my opponent clearly, well, they already wasted 2 Shaman. And we do see the Fomantis and Oddish come down. So my opponent, unless they are able to get another Shaman, seems to have drawn themselves out for the turn, which is very nice, unless they can get a Vileplume. But I would think that you want to get a Floatstone on your Vileplume instead of just playing that thing down, because otherwise you have to attach 3 energy to it. And especially the fact that you don't have DCEs in that deck, that would be very dangerous. So my opponent is just going to play it out like that. Good play, in my opinion. I am going to attach I'm going to attach the regular energy onto the Dratini, just be that much closer to being able to attack with my heavy impact Dragonite. And okay, I can definitely work with this. So I get a very good hand. What I am going to do is just play both Dragonairs down, probably, play the other Dratini, and then I'm just going to use Dragonair's attack to be able to use any number of energy cards from my hand onto my Pokemon. I'm just going to go for that attack instead of the Tail Smack on the Shaman, just because Heavy Impact is going to knock out a Shaman with or without a Fighting Fury Belt. So I really don't have to worry about that, and I'd rather have the option to attach as many energy from my hand as I want. Particularly if I happen to draw into another energy, I can start powering up a Dragonair on the bench, as well as have my Dragonite ready to go and attacking. So I have a Vikavolt in my hand, I have the Heavy Impact Dragonite in my hand. I'm in a fantastic position. I just hope that my opponent doesn't start getting a, oh, they get the Vileplume. So, if I can manage to Lysandre that thing up, I will be able to take a couple prizes on it.
But at this point, I think I'm just going to target down the Lurantises and the Shaman. My opponent has to figure out what he's going to promote this turn. If he promotes Vileplume or Shaman, I'm taking prizes, and I'm taking multiple prizes. If he promotes Lurantis, he's promoting his main attacker, and I will be 2 attacks away from taking multiple prizes on the Lurantis. And I know my opponent only has Energy and Shaman in their hand. So at this point, I am just going to evolve my Dragonite, going to evolve my Vikavolt, and I didn't draw an Energy, so that's kind of unfortunate right there. But what I can do is go ahead and Strong Charge. Glad I did not play the Lightning Energy yet, because I am not able to use Strong Charge to grab a Lightning Energy, so that's unfortunate right there. But what I am going to do is just Heavy Impact, start whittling down this Lurantis. It can only do 40 damage to me. Well, 60 at most if my opponent happens to play Kukui and happen to top deck it, but clearly my opponent top decked a Fomantis, so he will be able to start powering that thing up. Just holds on to the Shaman. So that's pretty interesting right there, but I will be able to take 3 prizes on this Lurantis next turn. So that is absolutely phenomenal. What I am going to do is Strong Charge, get an Energy onto probably the Dragonair. I think the Dragonair is the right thing to get the Energy onto, just so I can have potentially another Dragonite, and then I am going to Heavy Impact, knock out this Lurantis, and take a whopping 3 prizes, and just, if I get a Lysandre, I win the game. So, unfortunately, I mean, okay, I draw a bunch of Energy, that's fine with me. Unfortunately, I don't get any way to, like, put the Energy back into the deck, so that's a little unfortunate right there, that I will still just have to Strong Charge for a single Energy. But my opponent does have a very strong 6-card Shaman, top decks another Fomantis, so that's a little bit scary. Either way, I still think I'm in a good position. I only have 3 prizes left to my opponent's 6. And my opponent will have to knock out 6 Pokemon to win, and my opponent is just going to bring in the Vikavolt. So that is a very good play. If I had the Lightning in my deck, I'd be able to just immediately Strong Charge onto my Vikavolt, manually attach, and then retreat into the Dragonite. But unfortunately, because I have the Lightning in my hand, I'm only going to be able to Strong Charge for 1 Energy. Yeah, let's just go ahead and play the other Dragonite. Just cause. Let's Strong Charge, get some energy onto my Vikavolt, be able to retreat it later. Hopefully be able to retreat it next turn, and that's the nice thing about Vileplume. It's a double-edged sword. My opponent can't play items either. So I am able to kind of slow play this a little bit. I'm able to just attach to my Vikavolt and pass, because even if my opponent has a Lurantis, they'll be able to do 120 to me, but at that point it won't be a knockout. I'll be able to retreat back into my Dragonite and just hit it for hit it for some good damage. But my opponent clearly does not have the Lurantis. He probably has a way of getting a Lurantis if he was not under item lock, but I am just going to Strong Charge onto my Vikavolt, have the 3 energy I need, attach the Lightning just for potentially like future, just in case I need to retreat it again, and then I'm going to Heavy Impact, knock out this Fomantis, be a single prize away from winning, and my opponent sees the writing on the wall. At that point, I have a fully powered up Dragonite that is in no danger of being knocked out, and I will just be able to take the game from there. So a very awesome game right there, able to take down what many people consider to be one of the stronger decks to come out of Sun and Moon with budget Dragonite, and that is exactly why I threw the Delta Plus Dragonite in there. Yes, it has a very heavy attack cost, but the Vikavolt is pretty much, I mean, it seems like it was designed specifically for Dragonite's attack cost, so I gotta show off both Dragonite, gotta show off Vikavolt accelerating energy, gotta show off multiple matchups, and that was just a very, very awesome, very awesome couple matches with this deck. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed playing it. Leave your answer to the question of the day in the comments section below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and this is Styx, signing out. Why not? See you guys.